Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marsha Gordon. I'm President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester. It is my honor to welcome everyone to, I have to say, my favorite part of our State of the Economy series, State of the Economy, Arts and Culture, presented by PCSB Bank. Very, very pleased to welcome you here. We have wonderful, wonderful speakers. And I think we're hoping that this will be a very interactive session. We encourage you to put questions in the chat box and comments and tell us what you're looking forward to. And we're going to really learn about how the arts and culture sector, which frankly was the hardest hit during the pandemic, is coming back strong and evolving and being innovative and transforming in Westchester County. So we're in for a real treat this morning. I'm Joe Roberto from PCSB Bank, who's the chairman of the board and president and CEO. We'll be on in a minute, and if not, we will have him introduce himself later. But I do want to also recognize our two other supporting sponsors. First of all, Empire City Casino by MGM Resorts features one of the largest gaming floors in the country and the largest in the MGM Resorts portfolio. It's also home to the 123-year-old historic Yonkers Raceway. In the 15 years that Empire City Casino has been operated, it has generated, you ready for this? Over $15 billion for New York State education. It hopes to secure, and the Business Council of Westchester believes that this is a sure bet for New York, and we have a whole coalition, hopes to secure one of the available commercial casino licenses that were just authorized in the recently passed state budget. Yay! An initiative, as I said, that the BCW has long championed, because we know that this will create over 10,000 jobs throughout the region and more than $1 billion in economic activity. I see Joe Roberto on. Joe, yay, you're on. I'm going to bring you on in a minute. Thank you. So thank you to Empire City Casino by MGM Resorts, and thank you for all you do for our community. Talk about doing for our community. We are very, very pleased to have as a partner in this event as well, the Westchester County Office of Economic Development, led by Bridget Gibbons, which in 2022 is focused on workforce development in the context of the big resignation. We know workers want to commit themselves in a way that means more and results in long-term engaging careers. In 2022, the Office of Economic Development is rolling out several new training programs to help workers obtain jobs in the vibrant workforce in Westchester that offers well-paying, in-demand careers in healthcare, construction, and advanced manufacturing. To learn more about the county efforts, go to westchestercatalyst.com/work or contact Bridget Gibbons at the Office of Economic Development, and at the Business Council of Westchester. We're also very, very happy to connect you. And now it's my pleasure. Joe, it's been a rough couple of minutes. I know when you can't get on, it's so frustrating, but it's my pleasure to introduce Joe Roberto, who is chairman of the board and president and CEO of PCSB Bank, our presenting sponsor. Mr. Roberto.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. That technology did not want to work this morning. But yes, I am Joe Roberto, president and CEO of PCSB Bank, and it's an honor to be with you this morning and once again to be a sponsor of this worthwhile series. I want to thank Marsha, John, and the rest of the Business Council staff for collaborating on this 4-event series titled State of Westchester's Economy. We are proud today to sponsor all 4 events, but today's segment, which is the third, will focus on arts and culture. I would like to begin by thanking this morning's distinguished panel for taking the time to share their thoughts on their sector, arts and culture, which we know was materially impacted by COVID, but certainly we're anxious to hear what they see going forward and what the future holds for them. I know that PCSB Community Foundation continued to provide support in the arts and culture sector during COVID, knowing that they would be severely impacted by dollars that needed to be raised to continue with their important work. We know that the arts will always play a vital role in our society by communicating important messages, making our lives more manageable, tolerable, and enjoyable. As always, we are fortunate to have the Business Council to initiate dialogue on key topics like these. And by the way, for those who are watching who are not yet Business Council members, please consider joining. It will be one of the best investments you can make for your business in 2022. PCSB Bank has been a longtime member, and the BCW has been invaluable resources for us, our staff, and just our business as a whole. Again, I want to thank Marsha and John and the whole Business Council team again for allowing PCSB to sponsor this extremely worthwhile series. We encourage you to participate in the last of the four-part series slated May 11th, focused on not-for-profits. And remember, if you're not a member of the Business Council, there is no better time than now to join. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate that very much. And I want to say that one thing that businesses learned during the pandemic is the importance of having a strong relationship with their financial institution, and especially the community banks, and especially PCSB Bank, who I know personally because I was on the phone with Joe and his team for so many businesses that needed special help and needed guidance. And PCSB Bank's proactiveness and caring for the community kept so many businesses going and alive. So Joe Roberto, I want to thank you and your entire team that was there for businesses in Westchester County and the region. You really made a difference. So
thank you, Marsha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's reiterate that Westchester County's arts and culture sectors was one of the hardest hit by COVID. And that's why we especially applaud the leaders we have here on this panel. Now, as we emerge from the pandemic, how are arts and cultural institutions faring, and what do they see on the horizon? We have gathered the top experts in their fields and in the fields of arts and culture in Westchester County to discuss what they are doing to rebound from the crisis and what the future holds. I want to introduce the panel. They are all very distinguished. Laura deBuys, the president of the Picture House. I said it right that time, Laura, right? Yes, thank you, deBuys. Janet Langsam, CEO, Arts Westchester. Edward J. Lewis, president and CEO, Caramore Center for Music and the Arts. Marsha Tushinsky, director and CEO, Hudson River Museum. Peter Shapiro, the owner of Capitol Theater. For those of you who know me, I'm kind of nerdy about arts and culture. I love every one of your organizations, and I've been to them all. So I'm very proud to have you today. So Laura, we're going to start with you today. We are seeing a revival of the movie theater, thank goodness, post-pandemic. And the Picture House has recently discussed an incredible expansion. Can you talk a little bit about the plans the Picture House has to encourage people to get out and go to the movies? I, for one, I don't need any encouragement. I'm there. So it's all yours, Laura.
Thank you, Marsha. I think our plans are just to use you as our poster child and have you encourage everybody to come to the movies. Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. And my great thanks to Marsha and John and the BCW and to our sponsors. I want to tell you a little bit about who we are before I tell you about what we're going to do. The Picture House Regional Film Center is a mission-driven nonprofit providing film and education programs to a diverse and multi-generational audience in Westchester, the Bronx, and beyond. The nonprofit was formed in 2003 by a bunch of passionate citizens who were concerned that the 1921 Pelham Picture House was going to be torn down. They bought the building in 2005, renovated it in 2011, and have operated ever more successfully up to the present, or at least up until COVID. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, and 2021 marked the centennial of the Pelham Theater. So that brings you up to date, or up to COVID. COVID carried significant surprises for all of us. We never expected a 51-week closure, for sure. We did not expect to do a 10-day pivot to an online existence that carried its own surprises. But the biggest surprise is that we are emerging from the pandemic having expanded. It was something that was always in the design from the founders on, the need for multiple screens and the desire to expand. We just always thought it was going to be on our footprint or some other way. But this year we were able to lease the Bronxville Theater. Now that's another 1920s era movie theater that was at risk of permanent closure and demolition. So it's a total fit with who we are and with our mission. And we began operations there in March. So we're very excited about that. But now we're emerging into a new arts and cultural landscape with our 2 locations. We have 5 screens. We have an enormously, exponentially increased audience that is a little bit theoretical. Before the pandemic, in a for-profit model, the Bronxville Cinema sold 80,000 tickets a year. The Pelham Picture House sold 45,000. So theoretically, we could have an audience of 125,000, but people are coming back more and more slowly. Additionally, our education programs, which we had 40 in area schools from Port Chester down to Yonkers prior to the pandemic, those have all got to be restarted, and all of those students re-engaged in storytelling through film, which is arguably even more important today than it was previously. So that's our job now, to build back these audiences and concurrently build a sustainable future for these 2 1920s theaters. Through the expansion, we've not only increased our geographic footprint, we've extended our reach in the film industry. Multiple screens. We have 5 now. Did I say that before? I'll say it again. 5. Are much more appealing to distributors than virtually single screen that we had in the theater in Pelham. So we have access now to more films. You'll be able to see week to week to week, 364 days a year. We take Thanksgiving off. A different movie on each of the 5 screens, probably about 75 screenings in total, plus our special events. We do a great deal of films with guests afterwards, Q&As, and we're expanding more and more into some concerts, some spoken word, anything that brings the community together around arts and culture.
That's great. Yeah, Laura, we're going to wrap it up in like a minute.
We are. So we're seeing our audiences come back. We have our seniors coming back to the free senior cinema on Tuesdays. It's sponsored by Con Edison. Our film club is entering its 24th season, and that's about 270 people coming in every week. But we're also seeing that audiences are coming out less casually, whether it's to a restaurant or to the movies. They want to have a complete experience rather than just a random night out. So that's what we're focusing on with the expansion, is the ability to deliver more and more creative programming. And additionally, an exciting film festival that I will tell you about later.
I love it, Laura. And, you know, so what I'm hearing is a lot of kind of cross-functional arts and culture. So you're not, you know, only movies, you have other
Right.
experiences also, experiential, going out rather than just go to movies and go home, you know, creating kind of a whole night and expanding audiences. So that's why you are growing and that's why you're so successful. So thank you. It's my pleasure to turn this over now to Janet Langsam, who's the CEO of Arts Westchester and really leads the arts and cultural environment in Westchester County. I was very pleased to be at a picture house event, where Janet was recently honored. So congratulations, Janet. And we know that Westchester County's cultural landscape is reflective of the creative economy that we see emerging nationally. Can you talk to us a little bit about what this means in terms of arts and culture and contributions, especially to economic growth?
Thank you, Marsha, and thank you for bringing this important discussion together. I guess on behalf of arts and culture, I would just like to say we're back. Nationally, while the economy tanked about 3.4%, the arts and culture sector tanked about 5.8%. So, and that had to do with closures. A lot of our performing arts centers were closed, and there were, as we say in the trade, no butts in the seats. And that's one part of the story. However, there is a much brighter part of the story that has to do with the creative economy. We're not just arts and culture. What is happening is that nationally, there is a creative economy that is growing significantly in every community in the country. And when I talk about the creative economy, I'm not just talking about museums and theaters and those presentation spaces, but I'm also talking about the filmmakers, the artists, the writers, the people who are small businesses in Westchester County and elsewhere that really make up a very much broader creative economy than just looking at, you know, the movies or the museums and so forth. So there's this whole underbelly of creatives that are working in the sector. In Westchester, we're very lucky pre-COVID that more than 5% of the workforce was involved in the creative economy. Now, just a little bit about Arts Westchester. We are the largest funder of the arts in Westchester County and Rockland. Our funding is at the grace and goodwill of Westchester County, of the state legislature, and of corporate organizations that really see arts and culture as an important aspect of people's lives. During the COVID, I mean, the bad news about COVID was that the theaters were closed. The good news about COVID is that everybody pivoted to the internet. And what we saw, in fact, was an increase in audience. Arts Westchester, for example, put our education program online. And instead of getting 50 kids coming to a workshop, we got 5,000 kids, and not all of them from Westchester, mind you. But what's happening also in the cultural arena is a lot of inclusion, diversity, and equity. And we're looking at a cultural sector that the arts are for everyone. We're looking at a change in our audiences, and we're looking at bringing the arts out into the streets. So, for example, Arts Westchester is very active along with major developers in the county, in bringing public art out into the streets. Not everybody can go to a museum or a theater, but everybody can enjoy walking around in a renewed environment. And we're working with Martin Ginsburg and LMC and ITEL and many developers to really bring the arts out into the open. We also have an artsmobile that we bring around, and that really introduces a lot of people to the arts. So we are trying, not just at Arts Westchester, but at all of the organizations that we fund, to bring the arts to a greater population than ever before. When I said the arts are back, I think that every community in Westchester, all of a sudden, or maybe not all of a sudden, maybe this was just brewing, but everybody wants to have an arts and culture organization in their community. And what we're seeing is the proliferation of organizations like the Bedford Theater and the Chappaqua Theater, and many new community-based organizations. And people really do want to go down the street and enjoy the arts. It isn't just it isn't just about going into Manhattan, which is a bit of a chore these days, but people want to have the arts in their backyard, and that is growing and very rapidly in Westchester County. I just want to give a shout out to the state legislature. This year, there's an increased budget for what we call the New York State Council on the Arts. There's 150 million. Our majority leader, Andrea Cousins, had last year, with the entire state delegation from Westchester and Rockland, put $1 million in the New York State budget for Arts Westchester. This year, based on that wonderful president, I can't say it's a president, but
Well earned.
And well earned by my colleagues here that are on this call, because they are the producers of what we fund. But what I wanted to say is this year, Senator Cousins recognized that the community arts are really growing. And she put in a $10 million item, not just for Arts Westchester, but for the Syracuse, for the Capital Region, for Genesee. The arts are growing in New York State. It isn't just a New York City phenomenon.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
Janet, we need to wrap up because we have 3 other speakers.
we will do that. And
We thank, and Janet, we thank you. We're going to come back, but we thank you for your leadership, for your vision, and for your advocacy, because no one advocates like Janet Langsam for her industry. So thank you, Janet, and thank you for making Westchester a seat of the creative culture in New York and in the country. Thank you. And talk about creative culture and a seat and a wonderful, wonderful place that is transforming as well. A new CEO the past year, Edward Lewis, the CEO of Caramore, one of Northern Westchester's most prestigious arts venues. Ed, can you tell us about the exciting summer season ahead that you're unveiling? Who is the target audience for Caramore's numerous cultural opportunities, and how you see Caramore evolving? Ed Lewis.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Marsha, for inviting me to join today's panel. And thank you, Janet and Arts Westchester, for all your support. I'm really honored to be included among such an accomplished arts and culture panel. to share a little bit about Caramore, which is a major presenter of live world-class music experiences in 4 unique outdoor venues and a historic indoor venue on over 80 acres of spectacular gardens and grounds. And we're really thrilled to announce that this summer season is the most dynamic in our 77-year history. As we know, music has the power to transform lives. It provides a mirror into our humanity and reflects back to us who we are and who we aspire to be. It connects us to each other, and we really need that now more than ever. This particular season, Caramore offers one of discovery and inspiration, where we explore music from various cultures, styles, and traditions. And through presenting world-class performers and composers representing a vast array of backgrounds and lived experiences, this summer season spotlights many whom systemic forces have historically suppressed and focuses on music as a collective cultural heritage for the entire world. This sense of discovery is viewed through concerts that expand the canon of classical music in particular, including pianist and recently announced Performance Today's 2022 Classical Woman of the Year, Laura Downs, Sphinx Medal of Excellence winning soprano Janae Bridges, and Grammy-nominated ensemble Imani Winds, all making their Caramore debut, and a performance of The Chevalier, a concert theater work about Joseph Bologna, Chevalier de Saint-Georges, a prolific 18th century composer, virtuoso violinist, the finest fencer in Europe, general of Europe's first Black regiment, and a crusader for equality. This play was written by Bill Barkley, and it features the Harlem Chamber Players, and it explores Bologna's friendships with Mozart and Marie Antoinette, and his unknown contribution to the abolishment of slavery. So these music experiences and many more provide opportunities for a broad diversity of audiences to be able to hear themselves in the music and see themselves reflected from the stage. We're proud to have many 2022 Grammy Award-winning artists with us this summer, including a rousing opening night with Yo-Yo Ma and the Knights, Angelique Kidjo, Janae Bridges and Anthony Roth Costanza, Rhiannon Giddens, Caroline Shaw, and Dawn Upshaw, among others. And we're thrilled to have our popular All-Day American Roots Festival in June and All-Day Jazz Festival in July. One of our top-selling concerts is Broadway's Last Leading Man, Brian Stokes Mitchell.
Love
We also
him.
have
Love him.
free large-scale family-friendly events, including an early June afternoon of soundscapes, highlighting our peerless collection of outdoor sound art with a percussive tap dancing duo and breath artist Shodake, a Juneteenth celebration in collaboration with the town of Bedford, featuring international recording artist and songwriter Jeremiah Abia, and the world premiere of Michael Gordon's new large-scale site-specific work, Field of Vision, for over 40 percussionists placed around Caramore's grounds. So all of this, combined with our indoor fall and spring season, makes us what, according to the BBC Music Magazine, our year-round powerhouse of cultural activity. And I've experienced it myself in my first year here. And this positions Caramore really as a must-see destination for exceptional and now relevant world-class live music experiences. You know, in 2020, during the middle of the pandemic, Caramore completed its historic $41 million Inspire campaign. We quadrupled our endowment and revitalized our gardens and grounds to really transform the visitor experience. And over the past year and a half, we've been in a strategic planning process to envision a stronger and more relevant future to better serve our broader community. And this past winter, we entered the learning phase of the process and conducted a survey of our ticket buyers over the last 5 years in an online panel of representing a larger cross-section of the population of the New York metro region. And among the myriad data, we learned that Caramore has experienced part of a 5-year national trend of significant growth in adults' rate of attendance at outdoor performing arts festivals, according to the National Endowment for the Arts, with diverse and younger adults leading this shift. So that was really surprising to see. Not so surprising was 78% of our ticket buyers believe that Caramore was among the most prominent arts venues in the region. And we're all in good company here. And there was strong alignment with our value proposition among both ticket buyers and online panelists who don't know us so well, which we did see reflected in a historic first day of ticket sales in 2021. And this year, with the March 1st announcement of our summer season, This now puts us on track to exceed pre-pandemic attendance with robust ticket sales and memberships. We also learned that BIPOC audiences are interested in attending events that celebrate their cultural heritage, as well as to learn something new about other cultures. And this led us to re-envision our school and community engagement programs and really collaborate with community partners to share curatorial oversight to create our inaugural Dia de Muertos event, reflecting over 1,300 multiracial, multi-generational guests on our grounds for the 3-hour event this past October. That the local paper called it Culture Shift at Carramore. And most importantly, I think the data informed how we developed the summer season to be the most dynamic and diverse in our 77-year history, which I outlined at the top of my remarks. So we're really excited about Carramore and what we offer this year. And thank you, and I hope I've enticed you to join us this summer.
Wonderful. Well, you've certainly enticed. I see myself and everyone else on this panel. I can't see everyone in the audience, but amazing season coming up. And it's not just about the Carramore season. That's been the traditional way that we've thought of summer event places like Carramore, but it's all year long, talking about cultural shifts, talking about transformation, talking about different audiences. So we're starting to see a theme here that's very, very exciting. And it's why you are such great leaders. And we're so fortunate to have you. And talk about being fortunate to have people. Marsha Tuschinski, President and CEO of Hudson River Museum. Do I have your title right? Director and CEO, Hudson River Museum. I was there, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago to see the Frida Kahlo show.
Great.
Amazing. Is it still there, Marsha?
It is. The exhibitions are there through May 2022.
You can't miss it. Can't miss it. But you are about to unveil the new West Wing at the Hudson River Museum. What do you think the impact of this opening will be for the museum and in the arts community? Marsha, can you tell us a little bit about the special filming that took place also?
Oh yes, I figured that might pique your interest. I know that you're an avid film and series fan. So good morning, everyone, and I do want to say thank you to you, Marsha, and also thanks to the Business Council of Westchester for convening everyone. And I am taking all these notes because I'm loving hearing straight from the source what's going on in each of your organizations. And I think I would like to start out by saying one of the things that I really embrace about Westchester and I think makes it very special is that we as cultural organizations are not in competition with one another. This is what we realize is that, you know, the rising tide raises all boats, and it's really just incredible. I am a fan of going to all of these organizations. So right now it's been my pleasure to talk about what's coming up at the Hudson River Museum. But I think when I think about when I talk about the West Wing, which I'll speak about, it's really also very much in my mind, especially because of COVID and the pandemic, have been partnerships. And that really there's no cultural organization that is going to go it alone. And at the end of the day, we are leaders of something much larger than any one of us. So that's how I see it. Culture, we are in service to a culture that is bigger than any one of us on this screen. And that is what I think about every day. So the mission of the Hudson River Museum is to engage, inspire, and connect diverse audiences through the power of the arts, sciences, and history. And one of the ways that the ways that we do it, the museum is multifaceted and multidisciplinary. And so we do that through a dynamic and very important American art collection, which is principally rooted in the 19th century to present day. And I know a lot of people wonder about that. I always like to help people understand Hudson River Museum, that it is not exclusively devoted to the work of the Hudson River, though we very proudly have Hudson River and Hudson River School artists, but it's really a much more expansive and dynamic makeup of American artists. And that is very intentional and by design, because our American art continues to evolve. Our community here in Westchester, we know, continues to evolve. The demographics continue to change. And so a museum can't be static, and it should not be static. And so we build our collection with great intentionality. We think about who's in our community. I was really touched by the fact that in a recent Culture Track study, which is the largest cultural study done nationwide, actually in North America, when when a variety of audiences were polled, thousands and thousands of people were polled, the reflection of oneself, it matters so deeply in a cultural organization. And I think about that a lot in terms of how many steps does it take when you come in the door to feel welcome? How long does it take you to see a vision of yourself? Maybe not literal, but something that you connect with. And we know from those surveys and the people who come through the door at the Hudson River Museum that, for example, our Black and African-American visitors tell us that, and 57% say that it matters deeply that they are reflected on the walls or in the collections or in the exhibitions or the programs of their cultural institution that they attend. That's similar for Asian Americans, about 52%, Hispanic and Latinx, 43%. These numbers matter and we think about it. And for a long time, museums and the collections of museums were mostly rooted in work by white male artists, right? And so that really needs to change. And so when we think about how we collect and who we show, we think a lot about that. And that really brings me to the current exhibition, which I'll talk about before I talk about the West Wing. Currently, we are featuring.
Marsha, we want to really learn about the West Wing and what's happening, and Frida and everything.
Absolutely. So Frida is great. It's bilingual. Everyone. It's an iconic artist, right? Iconic. She resonates deeply with people worldwide, and we are very proud to have shows featuring over 75 artists right now, reflecting the work and the perseverance of Frida Kahlo. And we also are doing a very exciting partnership with Art Bridges, which was founded by Alice Walton, a major collector of dynamic American works. And all of that is going to be expanded upon in our new West Wing, which will open in fall of 2022. Yeah, really excited. And I want to say we're very thankful for the collaborative and partnership and funding that has come from the city of Yonkers, Westchester County, and New York State. And the West Wing is going to be a new wing, a dynamic new wing in which we will be able to feature the special exhibitions. And why that matters is, one, it will be world-class galleries right along the Hudson River. And we're talking about beautiful 15-foot ceilings. We're talking about galleries that you would expect to find in a major institution in New York City. And that will be a space we can dedicate to exhibitions. And that also matters because we will be able to then turn over many of the galleries that have been traditionally used for special exhibitions to feature much, much more of our permanent collection. And we have a very significant collection, and I am positive actually that the community is going to be excited to see what they find. And the last thing is that it will be a brand new community and partnership gallery to elevate and serve as a catalyst for local artists.
Wonderful, wonderful. And if anyone, can I just say, if anyone watched The Gilded Age?
Yes.
Wonderful mansion on the grounds of the Hudson River Museum that was used largely as a setting for the Gilded Age. So that's another way that our many fine cultural institutions are being used as well. Marsha, you're amazing. The museum is fantastic. And you have a planetarium and so many other things, so many activities for families and children. And thank you for everything that you do. Now, moving around the county, and I love that we're really touching all locations in Westchester County. Peter Shapiro, the owner of the Capitol Theater. You've been a mainstay for concerts and musical entertainment for decades in Westchester, but since moving past the pandemic and returning stronger than ever, tell us about what's next and how the Capitol Theater especially has been a booster for Portchester's economy.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here with such a great group. Well, I think something that reflects pretty powerfully the power of live music and the power of this amazing rock palace that was built in 1926 by Thomas Lamb, who really is the preeminent architect in American history of the palace theaters, the classic original movie palaces and music venues, mostly built in the 20s. And the Capitol Theater was built in 1926. We have an interesting fact. We did a band a couple weeks ago for 3 nights. We often book bands to play 3 nights because then people will travel. But we had a band, Ween, and we can check the zip reports, which means the zip code from the credit card purchasing the ticket. And for Ween, we had zip codes representing 47 of the United States.
Wow.
We then had Tedeschi Trucks Band the next week, which is just a couple weeks ago in March. And we had 3-night run, and we had zip codes representing 37 states. So when the Capitol Theater, oh, someone came from Vermont. When the Capitol Theater hosts a major talent, people love seeing their favorite band in a venue that they love. And the Capitol Theater is unique. It's the only Lamb Theater not based in a city. That's especially, I think, operating today, but the original Ziegfeld, the Boston Opera House, most of the Lamb Theaters, most of the Rock Palaces, most well-known live music venues, Beacon Theaters, Chicago Theaters, they're all downtown in major cities. So that the Portchester and Westchester having the Capitol Theater is truly unique. There really is no comp to it. And the pedigree of the Capitol having Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Pink Floyd, Janis Joplin, and then more recently in my years, I've had it now for 10 years, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Willie Nelson, to bring that kind of talent to an area like Portchester. And when people drive in from all across the East Coast and other areas, they're supporting the restaurants. A lot of the restaurants do menus. When we have a CAP show, they'll do a CAP menu. We could use some more hotels. There's great hotels. People are staying in the hotels. When we would do Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead, who's doing 9 nights in October, and he's done 80 shows at the Capitol since I took over the last 10 years. The local Hilton in Rybrook would be dubbed the Philton. But the Hilton just closed. So if anyone on this call wants to reopen it, we would love that. That happened during COVID. The Westchester area lost the Renaissance, lost Arrowwood, lost Hilton. So my big thing would be we could use a couple hotels. There's some good ones because we are appealing and attracting audiences to come to shows from around the country. That's really the level that the CAP is at. We're also we adapted to streaming. When COVID hit, we went dark for 1.5 years. We had great support from government. I think all of us probably did. I mean, I don't know the facts for some of the other people on Zoom with Kara Moore, et cetera, but the Save Our Stages Act, when things hit the fan, everyone, the politics can be small government, big government, but I'll tell you, everybody wanted help. So let's remember that when we support our politicians. Chuck Schumer stepped up for us, but everyone wanted that government help. So I hope people remember that when they support their leadership. And we got it, and it saved us. We did do a lot of streaming, selling merch, being creative. Streaming's now a bigger part of our ongoing. We stream as many shows as we can. Sometimes they're free. Sometimes it's ticketed. We're doing all types of events. We have a big comedy show coming up next week. We're doing Steely Dan for 3 nights this summer. We're doing the band Chicago is coming up, is sold out. We just did Beach Boys. We're doing 100 shows a year, and we're doing the biggest acts in the world. And we have an amazing team. We have 90, I think the number is something like 90 volunteer ushers.
Wow.
These are teachers. These are members of the community who volunteer to play an usher role. A lot of we have a street team of volunteers who get free tickets. You may see Capitol Theater posters in local delis, and they put them up across really the whole tri-state East Coast region. We had a friend send us, speaking of Vermont, a Capitol Theater poster at a ski mountain, in the lodge. So we have a big team, and we really make it a community. We have something called Cap Cares, which is for our fans we help organize our fans to be able to give back and be active in the community. And it's really been cool to see how much it's come back and how many people want to support us. The ticket sales are strong, as strong or stronger than pre-pandemic. It's back.
Peter,
and we're
wrap it up because we want to go to the final question, but it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm loving hearing all of this.
Thanks for having us.
So thank you all. And Peter, I honestly, it's an eye opener to see how the arts and culture is attracting people from outside. I know, Marsha, I think you put in that you're also seeing people from 37 states or something, and
well, yeah, prior to COVID, we had a record of 42. Of course, that changed dramatically, like for everyone on this call during COVID, but we are seeing those numbers return.
Great, wonderful, wonderful. So when we talk about the state of the economy and the arts and culture being economic engines, you have all proven that over and over again by your remarks and what you've shared. We at the Business Council Westchester are also focused on creating a Westchester Innovation Network and a culture of innovation in Westchester. So because we have some questions that we want to get to also, I'm going to ask each one of you to take maybe 1 minute to talk about what you're doing that's especially innovative in Westchester. Marsha, I'm looking at you. Can I start with you?
Oh, yeah, with me. Okay. So let's see. Wow, this has been an amazing year of so many. I hate to overuse that word pivot. I think I will go back to that idea of partnership and collaboration, and again maybe bring up that Art Bridges partnership because it is exceptional. The Hudson River Museum is one of very few organizations in the United States that was selected by Art Bridges to bring outstanding works of American art to the local community. And that means that we get to bring in world-class artists, and especially those whose works we might not be able to afford to bring in, frankly, with our operating budget relative to a much, much larger institution. And so that's how we've brought in Kerry James Marshall, and that's how we brought in David Driscoll or Barclay Hendricks. Right now we've got an amazing Rosenthal painting up. We've had David Hockney. So I think one of the most
really
innovative
those partnerships that
major and
really growing out in strategic alliances that have been
and I'll say locally,
part of the innovation.
Locally, a partnership like working with the Ballet Folklorico Mexicano to bring amazing dynamic costumes as part of Frida, and then they will perform with us on Mother's Day. So for me, it's partnership, partnership, partnership.
Wonderful. Ed, innovation.
Sure, we're doing about the same thing, is deepening our community engagement and really developing strong relationships with key organizations. I think, Marsha, you said it, and I said it as well. Audiences want to see themselves reflected from the stage and to hear themselves in the music. So we are sharing that curatorial control of some of our engagement events to help not only serve the community, but build a diverse audience for the future, as well as bring in artists that reflect that diversity, also in diversifying our board as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Laura, Picture House.
Yes, we're excited about the state of film in Westchester County. You mentioned filming The Gilded Age at the Hudson River Museum. And what we've seen during the pandemic is that an already healthy film industry has just taken off. I know most of you know that Lionsgate has built a huge studio in Yonkers. Mayor Spano is calling this Hollywood on the Hudson, and we're all for that. So we're going to field what I hope will become a fixture in the calendar, a SOE Film Festival in the fall. It'll be a great way to get back together, celebrate film, and celebrate the filmmakers and the filmmaking community in Westchester. We're excited about lifting up new voices and giving filmmakers access to professionals from around the world.
Wonderful. Peter, I want to give you a minute to brag about your big announcement yesterday.
We got named as a historical building landmark for Westchester, and thinking we've had great support from our legislatures, like I said, and we try to give back. We have the presidential boxes that we have. We take the revenue from that and we try and contribute. We do contribute that back to organizations that are active in the arts, both locally in Port Chester and across New York. And we're really also proud about this, the the giving, the organizing of our fans, the people who love the cab now with online communities. There's so many groups and ways to organize people. So we actually just organize people who love going to shows at the Capitol and create community service activities for them to participate. And we fund the organizing part. And I don't think there's probably, I doubt there's many venues, any venue. I'm active in the live music. You know, I have a venue in Las Vegas, Nashville, Philadelphia. I don't know any other venue in the country that organizes the fans to do community activities. So I think that's really unique to the Capitol and to Portchester and the nature of those Westchester fans.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. That actually is extremely innovative. Thank you so much for sharing. Janet, innovation, and I'm going to tie this into one of the questions, that there's a festival happening in White Plain this fall, and you want to talk about both together, and then we're going to go to the questions.
I didn't hear the first one, but I certainly heard the second one. We have a festival coming up in White Plains in October of this year. It's called Serious Fun, and it's based on two things: music for sure, but also the public art that is beginning to take over White Plains. In some cases, 9-foot murals on new residential buildings. There's so much construction going on in White Plains, and in fact, all over the county. But we're hoping to use those new buildings as a palette for wonderful works of art that we can, that will be permanent as well as temporary. I wanted to pull something together. It occurred to me that we are all in historic buildings. Arts Westchester purchased a bank, a 100-year-old bank. We are also renovating and expanding our footprint, but we're all in historic buildings. And I think that's another one of the marvelous things about the community, the arts community in Westchester, how we've transformed theaters and banks and old buildings into new and vital places. So
I love that. I love that point, and it's a great way that innovation is happening in a different way than we normally think of innovation. So thank you all so much. So a couple of questions here. One has to do with Laura, with alcohol in movie theaters. Is it currently allowed? Is that a view to the future?
Well, we hope so. Governor Hochul has passed legislation that enables us to apply for a license to serve beer and wine in our theaters. And so the executive committee of the Picture House will meet and decide on that on Thursday evening.
Okay.
But we think it's a go.
Great. I'm ready for my glass of wine. Thank you. I know Brent Glass asked a question about how important a tourist is distinct from local audiences. I think we answered that question, Brent, but I do want to acknowledge one of our participants today is Brent Glass, the executive director of Sing Sing Prison Museum. So stay tuned for more stay tuned for more. Are there any trends or new types of artists that are appearing in other parts of the country or the world, but we have not seen here yet, and we expect to see in the future? And that's from our good friend Larry Gottlieb from Robert Martin Company. Anybody that is around that we might be seeing, or we can? Yes, Marsha.
I don't want to say that it has not been seen in Westchester. Westchester is quite good at doing cutting edge cultural experimentation, but I would say immersion, hands-on experiences, immersive experiences, or participatory. And we just know that audiences are very interested in not only being passive when they go to that cultural experience, and it can happen in different phases. So even if you're going to a concert, what happens before or after? Is there a talk back? do you get to chat with musicians, right? Ed, I mean, you probably do that. And I know that everybody here, Laura, you have done that with meet the artists or, so we are, for us, we think a lot about how do people weave in and out of art exhibitions as opposed to just maybe like the 7-second shuffle that you see at the super large ones where people are exhausted at, Fifth Avenue museums. So I would say interactivity rather than passivity.
I think one of the things that you will see is that we are all becoming more serious. And by that, I mean that we are showcasing artists who are talking and painting and thinking about world issues.
Yes.
Arts Westchester, we're doing an exhibition called Who Writes History? We know that history is written by the victor, according to Winston Churchill, but every person has a story and a view of what happened. And so I think our arts institutions are beginning to focus on world issues, community issues, gender issues. And I think you'll see that more and more.
That's wonderful. That's really, really interesting. And also somebody pointed out that arts and culture is a wellness engine. By the way, I'll put in a plug for the Business Council, but we have transformed our day of golf to not only be, yes, have golf, but also be a day of wellness. So we're loving that. Art making and experiencing art gives us much needed downtime, encourages part of our brains that have been set aside for work, family, and all of the stresses of the current time. So Sharon McDonough, thank you for that, and your other and your other really, really relevant comments. And we want to thank our great panel. Again, Laura deBuys, the president of the Picture House, Janet Langsam, CEO, Arts Westchester, Edward Lewis, president of Caramore Center for Music and the Arts, Masha Tusinski, director and CEO of Hudson River Museum, Peter Shapiro, the owner of the Capitol Theater. We want to thank our supporting sponsors, Empire City Casino by MGM Resorts. When that gets passed, there will be many more opportunities for artistic and cultural enjoyment, as well as Bridget Gibbons, Westchester County Office of Economic Development, who I know is so supportive of arts and culture as a linchpin, as a pillar of economic development in Westchester County. And to Joe Roberto and the team at PCSB Bank, a presenting sponsor, thanks for all you do to support business in the community through the bank and through your foundation. Support so many of these efforts and the great work that you do to be a financial institution that keeps Westchester County moving forward in every sector. So thank you all. Have a great day. Enjoy. And thank you for participating in this State of the Economy series. Enjoy.
Thank you, Marsha.
Thank you, Marsha. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.